And thank you for joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio. Coming up, Congressman Labrador will join us. We're very excited to speak with him about a few things. And don't forget, on Friday, Idaho Chooses Life's family dinner banquet at Eagle Christian Church. IdahoChoosesLife.org. I'll be there along with Ron Crane, along with many of the candidates running for governor, State House, Congress. David Ripley will be there if that's not a reason for the season as well. Eagle Christian Church on Old State Street. Right on the cusp of Eagle, right before they get to the People's Republic of Star. And festivities begin about 6:30. Silent auction. Kent Corbett will be there. Corbett Auctions. They'll have the regular auction, and it's pretty good. Great carbs and fiber. In other words, spaghetti and salad. It's really a wonderful event. It warms your heart. If you haven't been there, we invite you to join us this Friday night at Eagle Christian Church. For more information, go to IdahoChoosesLife.org. The idea of culture and morality. And I've worked in places across the country where, people would laugh at people like us. The flyover people. The people that value God. The people that want to instill American religious, Christian, traditional values in their children. Well, we're not laughing anymore, right? When you see about Matt Lauer, when you think about other folks. And I want to start this hour with Matt Lauer interviewing Bill O'Reilly from our friends at Newsbusters. And Matt Lauer has issued a statement saying he's sorry, and all these women are saying, oh, my goodness gracious. This woman was courageous. Of course, these were the same people, some of them that knew about Matt Lauer's indiscretions. Matt Lauer, who is married, but, if you're a philanderer, that's okay, I suppose, right? Nothing's right about that. So let's take a listen to this. Let's hear righteous Matt Lauer.
You were accused of sexual harassment. Mm-hmm. You said at the time you did absolutely nothing wrong. Correct. Do you stand by that?
I do.
And so did you provide Fox News any evidence, any information that you think could have changed their mind as to what you were guilty or not guilty of? You were probably the last guy in the world that they wanted to fire because you were the guy that the ratings and the revenues were built on. You carried that network on your shoulders for a lot of years. So doesn't it seem safe to assume that the people at Fox News were given a piece of information or given some evidence that simply made it impossible for you to stay on at Fox?
Now, hold on. I love how Newsbusters put that together. Because that's exactly what happened to Matt Lauer. Heck, at least Bill O'Reilly had 4 or 5 days or a week or two. Matt Lauer, she came forward on Monday. He was gone yesterday. It is amazing. It's Shakespearean. Let's continue on.
But you don't let your number one guy go unless you have information that you think makes him...
That's not true.
Did you ever send a lewd text or email to another employee at Fox News?
No.
Did you ever have any human resources cases brought against you?
Every company in this country, including this one, Comcast, has these lawsuits. Every one.
But think about those 5 women and what they did. They came forward and filed complaints against the biggest star.
Now, Matt Lauer is saying this. You don't have to take a psychology course to understand the term projection, which is you're projecting your indiscretions, your insecurities onto somebody else. Isn't that what Matt Lauer is doing here?
At the network they worked at. Think of how intimidating that must have been, how nerve-wracking that must have been. Doesn't that tell you how strongly they felt about the way they were treated by you? Over the last 6 months since your firing, have you done some soul-searching? Have you done some self-reflection? And have you looked at the way you treated women that you think now or think about differently now than you did at the time?
Now, Matt Lauer, let's put this into context. It's come out that he had a special office at NBC Comcast. A special office that was secluded, where he could have the rendezvous with women. And he would have a special button on his desk, I'm not making this up, that the door would secretly lock. So the women couldn't get out and no one could come in to stop this stuff. Now, by the way, it's not just Matt Lauer that's a creep. Prairie Home Companion. You remember old Garrison Keillor? I mean, look, first Uncle Charlie gets it. Now Garrison Keillor, who's going to be left? Right? I mean, poor old Garrison Keillor, he says that he just touched a woman's back and now he's gone. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. It is very, very strange and troubling when you think about this. But let's not blame Matt Lauer. Let's blame NBC, who enabled this to happen. I mean, Matt Lauer would go on the Today Show and mock sexual assault victims. And if you don't believe me, it's amazing where all of a sudden they made an issue of Willie Geist touching Matt Lauer's derriere. I mean, come on. Sometimes these guys get so full of themselves, they don't get it. And this guy, remember, listen to what he said to Bill O'Reilly. Listen to what Lauer said about the president with the Access Hollywood tape. Do we have that ready here at KIDO Talk Radio? It is amazing.
The election, at least 4 women have now come forward accusing Donald Trump of improper behavior, including kissing and groping. But right now, let's bring in Nicole Wallace and Steve Kornacki. Good morning to both of you. The last week or so, we sat here on a number of occasions. I think, Nicole, you said that Access Hollywood tape might be the low, might be the bottom, might be the final straw. Is this the final straw in this campaign?
Right. One could say, is this the final straw with... And really, if it's John Conyers, if it's Matt Lauer, these are liberals that are making this happen, right? Not in anything else. This is not the conservatives. At 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And look, if I'm NBC News with their faux tears, they were the ones making this happen. They were the ones covering this up, right?
He once gave a colleague a sex toy as a present. It included an explicit note about how he wanted to use it on her, which left her mortified. There's more, but that's certainly a different image of everyone's favorite morning guy. This is a big deal. I mean, they're all big deals, but this is a big one.
Yeah, this is huge, and good riddance. I don't know what more to say about that. But look, I think there's enough in the Variety story, and then the New York Times just came out with a story right before we went to air. There needs to be an investigation of NBC at this point, much in the way that I think that Fox News brought in Paul Weiss, the law firm, to conduct an investigation. There is stuff in here that at least raises the possibility that people in management knew what was going on, or at the very least should have suspected it. And in fact, I believe in the Variety, there were reports that more than one woman say they went to network execs about Lauer's behavior, and that those complaints fell on deaf ears.
Says several women told Variety to complain to executives about the behavior over time.
So, I mean, between that and the button under his desk, I mean, somebody signed off on that. Let's see a work order on that. I just, Comcast, which owns NBC.
Let's see a work order on that.
Comcast is a publicly owned company. I think their shareholders have a right to know what exactly was going on here.
Yes, and most...
Maybe Robert Mueller should investigate NBC. I mean, we're investigating everybody, right? 580-5436, 580-KIDO. It really goes to show you how blessed we are to live in Idaho. And look, we're not immune to public scandals, but on the other hand, let's face it. These people that get so full of themselves, and then to go after our friend Bill O'Reilly is just crazy. Then you have John Conyers. He's trying to stay in office. There's a congressional young lady, and I wish I could get her name. I caught her again yesterday. She's been most outspoken concerning John Conyers, and she said, boy, it's sad that network television has higher standards when it comes to men and women, when it comes to relations in the workplace, than members of Congress. Think about that. Think about that indeed. By the way, there's a new bill circulating in Congress concerning the Second Amendment. A key House committee giving its stamp of approval to a new bill to expand the rights of gun owners. Let's get the latest here at KIDO Talk Radio.
The House Judiciary Committees voted to send a measure to the full floor that'll let gun owners with a state-issued concealed carry permit to carry a handgun into any state that allows concealed weapons. It's a GOP-backed measure, with conservative lawmakers saying it'll let gun owners travel freely without worrying about conflicting state laws. Democrats complain it'll endanger public safety. This is the first gun legislation out of a House committee since the mass shootings in Las Vegas and Sutherland Springs, Texas. In Washington, Jill Nato, Fox News.
Well, it makes sense, right? Why not have reciprocity? I know our friend Greg Pruitt has been talking about this for quite some time, to have reciprocity in other states, that if you have a concealed carry permit here in the state of Idaho, which you do not need to have one anymore, you can just conceal and carry. Why not be able to do that in other states where they agree with the Second Amendment, where they love the Second Amendment, where they love America, as opposed to what we have today, where people just kind of sit back and say they can take away your rights, take away your speech, take away your guns. That's not the case now, is it? That's not the case in Idaho. So I agree with this measure. Why not, put it on the line? Because if we don't, as we've seen, when you have people that disagree with conservatism, when you have people that disagree with rights, with the Constitution, with the Bill of Rights, well, what happens next? They take them away. And then once they have the guns, they can take away speech. Heck, they haven't even taken away guns, and they've taken away speech, right? 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So there are two topics there. Matt Lauer and the height of hypocrisy. What does this mean for parents and grandparents? And by the way, last hour we revealed that Cliven Bundy has been released, but he will not leave jail. Ammon Bundy looks like he will get out today, along with Ryan Payne and others. We'll hear from the Bundys coming up. We'll also hear from Congressman Raul Labrador on his quest to be the next governor in the state, number one. Number two, this tax reform bill, what does it mean? Maybe we'll ask him about this concealed carry bill percolating through Congress as well. A lot going on this morning. We'd love to hear from you next. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. KIDO.
As many as 800 million workers around the world could lose their jobs to robots and automation by 2030. That's more than 1/5 of today's global labor force. According to a new report by McKinsey & Company, both developed and emerging countries will be affected. Jobs most vulnerable include machine operators, fast food workers, and back office employees. Mortgage brokers, paralegals, and accountants could also be in danger. Jobs requiring human interaction, like doctors, lawyers, teachers, and bartenders, are seen by McKinsey as least likely to be overtaken by robots. Kathleen Maloney, Fox News.
Well, just good news today. Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio. So you're not going to be replaced by someone from another country. You're going to be replaced by a robot. And really, what's the difference between a fast food worker and a bartender? I don't know. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. A couple of other things going on, and we pride ourselves on not being hypocrites. We pride ourselves on trying to live our gimmick, if you will. And that is a family-friendly, wholesome show of, being role models in the community. We certainly applaud everybody in the Treasure Valley who is a role model. But Matt Lauer, this story from Variety and other places, exposing himself, and then mad at scolding an employee for when he exposed himself, not doing anything about it, and being horrified. You can't tell me that people at NBC didn't know what was going on. You can't tell me that the people in Washington didn't know what was going on with John Conyers. Which is the bigger scandal? The Today Show guy using his power over women, or the congressional guy? And look, it may be a distraction, but on the other hand, the idea that our cash has been used to quell these sexual predators, these sexual harassment lawsuits, are crazy, right? Now you have an Army veteran is the fifth woman to accuse Al Franken of sexual misconduct. Isn't it time for Al to go? Isn't it time for a lot of these people to go when we're thinking about this? The issue here is, what did they know and when did they know it? As I said earlier today on one of the big shows, Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski, who at one time they were married to people that were not their spouses. Now they've become spouses, and they're going at it on the air. Well, we don't know when they started not being, married to other people, and now they're engaged to each other. It's simply crazy. And what do you do as a parent? What do you do as a parent? I'm amazed, though, that to everybody on the Today Show, well, we're sorry for Matt. I'm not sorry for Matt Lauer. Matt Lauer is going to make a lot of money and has made a lot of money. His career is ruined. You know who I'm sorry for? The person that works in the cold and through no fault of their own lose their job. The person that works at a job that they love and then all of a sudden through financial mismanagement or whatever you want to call it, that company goes bankrupt. And they lose their pension and they lose their security. Some of them lose their jobs when those countries go bankrupt. It's a very different world that we live in here in the Treasure Valley that we do, when we're watching the tabloids. Here's Savannah Guthrie. I don't feel bad for Savannah Guthrie. Mrs. Miller and I were speaking about this last night. Savannah Guthrie is very high paid. She lives in a world of private limousines and fancy restaurants and big time apartments. She can't relate to us here in the Treasure Valley.
We just moments ago received a statement from Matt, and let me read it to you. There are no words to express my sorrow and regret for the pain I have caused others by words and actions. To the people I have hurt, I am truly sorry. As I am writing this, I realize the depth of the damage and disappointment I have left behind at home and at NBC. Some of what is being said about me is untrue or mischaracterized, but there is enough truth in these stories to make me feel embarrassed and ashamed. I regret that my shame is now shared by the people I cherish dearly. Repairing the damage will take a lot of time and soul searching, and I'm committed to beginning that effort. It is now my full-time job. The last 2 days have forced me to take a very hard look at my own troubling flaws. It's been humbling. I am blessed to be surrounded by people I love. I thank them for their patience and grace.
There we have it. Let's hear from you next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio, traffic and weather together. And we go to Cindy in Caldwell with Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Cindy.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. You asked a question about, our grandchildren or children and who to point them to. And I said to Ray and Maya, you know what? I was reading through yesterday a Reagan Ranch calendar and speaking to all his points on government and liberty, et cetera. And, you two, when I first moved to Idaho, pointed me in the right direction because I want to point my grandchildren to healthy people who purport, the things in the United States that I so value, allegiance to the flag, are blessings, instead of people that are so fallen. I just have no comment on them. But one of the things I'm just so grateful for is that I also went to bed hearing about the Bundys and the one that's chosen not to take house arrest. But you two covered that with the integrity. I remember even in an event you said when you fell down going over there, and with Lavoie, my heart's just still been broken. But to me, those gentlemen are all role models for my grandchildren. Reagan spoke to limited government, strong national defense, trying to speak back about the encroachment of our liberties being taken away. And I'm just blessed that I'm not concentrating on those people that are fallen. I don't point my grandchildren even to the Sin Sick News, but to people and radio stations that purport everything I want them to use critical thinking skills when you promote the people that you do. I was on the phone, and I will have to say that. A gentleman that I'm supporting for this election is Raul Laboratory, and because he seemed to, from the get-go with this president, understand it was beyond all this petty, this ridiculous sexual talk, but he purported life. He stood beside the things that he knew that this president wanted to do with our, government, with limiting it, with trying to, set back some of the things that were taking it down from within. And for me, utmost, because I saw Raul last year at the pro-life. I don't know if he's coming this year, but because the things that he has
Cindy,
supported,
are you going to be there this year?
I certainly am. I got my ticket yesterday.
Well, I will see you there, yeah.
So I just want to say thank you all for you can choose where your mind's going to wander to the gutter, to the cesspool, or for people to gravitate over to this station, or stations now, to really get the news, use some critical thinking skills, and then purport the values that they want their grandchildren to go to. So, yeah, I am just blessed to hear you speak about the Bundys this morning. As you know, they've just been heavy on my heart because of their great big families for over, 2 years now. So thanks, Kevin, and you just press on. I'll be not anxious, but I'll be blessed to hear about Raul's, what he has to say, and I'll be down to Boise to help out with the campaign.
Well, you'll hear from him next, Cindy. Thank you.
I'm blessed about that. Thanks. Have a blessed day, Kevin.
Thank you, Cindy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning.
Kevin Miller in the morning here, KIDO Talk Radio. Our great friend, the champion of conservatism, Congressman Labrador, joins us. Congressman, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. I have to ask you something, Congressman. You have always been a person that has talked about faith, family, and freedom and lived those comments, being a role model, understanding the value of family, whether as a private citizen or as a member of Congress. What do you make of all these indiscretions going on in the media, not only in Congress, but in the media and in life, as a man who lives by a moral code and prides himself on being a good role model, sir?
This is probably one of the most trying times I've had in public office, when I watch all these different people around me and I start thinking, how do people think this is even appropriate? Because if you think about the types of allegations that are coming out, how does any man think that it's okay to just drop their pants in front of somebody? How does any man think that it's okay to say those kinds of things? And I just think about what happens when people get power, and it's one of the reasons that I think I've been for term limits. It's one of the reasons that I think our founding fathers wanted checks and balances in government, because they understood that men tend to take advantage of the power, and men and women, but it seems to be it's mostly men in these instances. And it's just one of the most horrible things that I have seen. I don't think any woman should be subjected to that kind of behavior. I think it should not be tolerated. I don't tolerate it in my presence. I don't allow it in my office. Luckily we've never had any issues like that. But I think that's because of the culture that I have tried to create in my office. And, and no one's perfect, but you look at some of these things that are happening in society, in the media, in politics, and I feel bad for the public, because everyone has to be feeling right now like there's no one they can trust. and it's just a horrible thing. And I can't imagine the women, that have gone through this, what they have experienced. And I just hope that we can create a better culture. I think as a leader, one of our jobs is to create a better culture in our society, and that's something that needs to come from the home, that needs to come from the pulpit, that needs to come from the papers, from everybody. We need to start talking a little bit about how we can be better men and better women, how we can treat each other better. And I think, you look at the debasement of society, you look at the TV shows. There's TV shows on regular network right now that I can't even watch because of the type of debasement that you see in those shows. And we all need to be questioning what are we doing and how can we be better.
Congressman Raul Labrador joining us here. Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio. Congressman, just one more thing about morality. Your time in Congress, you and Senator Lee have been a champion of the family, and that's very, it's hard to believe that in the age we're living in, one would say, moral relativism, that being a person of protecting the family, protecting marriage is kind of a throwback these days.
It is. And any time you try to talk about having a higher standard and trying to protect traditional marriage or trying to protect traditional way of being, you sort of get mocked by society. Remember when Mike Pence said that he had certain rules about whether he ate dinner alone with a woman or things like that? He wasn't praised for that. He was actually mocked by the media. And I just thought, that a person who's trying to live a certain code of conduct, they always put them down. And then what ends up happening in society is that we all know, that none of us are perfect. And just because I'm trying to live a higher code doesn't mean that I always abide by that higher code. And you try to do everything you can. And what the media does is they try to mock you for those times that you may make a mistake. And I'm talking about small mistakes now. The stuff that that you were talking about earlier, that's just unacceptable in society. But they always look to pick on people that have a higher code, and they try to mock them, and they try to find whatever the little failings are that they may have. Instead of praising people, a person like Mike Pence who just said, I'm going to try to treat women with respect, and I'm going to be very loyal to my wife, and I'm going to do everything I can to live in a certain way. And it's just, I think we all have to look introspectively at the things that we do and the things that we say. I think there's a huge problem in society with pornography. And obviously you can't legislate against pornography, and I'm not advocating that. But every man who's listening to your show should be thinking, is that really something appropriate? If I'm looking at those things, is that something that's appropriate for me to be doing? Because the debasement of women in pornography and in other forms of media leads to the type of behavior that you're seeing these men do. It's a horrible thing. I mean, I cannot even imagine some of the things these men are doing. But I just think it gets to a point where people see too many graphic images, and they think that it's okay to do these kinds of things. And I think every man who's listening to your show should really think about what they're doing, should think about how they live their lives. How do they treat their wife? Do they treat them with respect? Do they treat their coworkers with respect? And we really as a society need to hopefully use this as a catalyst to become better at our everyday behavior.
You are so correct, Congressman. Congressman Raul Labrador joining us here live from Washington. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. It is so important to stand for principle. Let's get to what's going on in Washington. And you have Representative Conyers, you have Senator Franken. Is this a big issue that people are talking about on Capitol Hill and the disclosure of this $17 million in taxpayer-funded slush funds going on?
Absolutely. I mean, most of us didn't even know that this was happening, that there was this slush fund. The reality, and let's just be clear, the reality is that more than half of that money was going to other kinds of claims, like asbestos claims. There's a bunch of different claims, so it wasn't all sexual harassment claims. So it doesn't matter what the amount was. The fact that you have taxpayer money going to a private settlement and we're hiding the identity of people who committed these types of abuses is totally unacceptable and uncalled for. And most of us are calling for this information to be made public. And so we know who these people are. We know how much money they paid, and we know what they paid it for. If it was some office that paid for an asbestos claim, for example, well, we should know so they don't, so everyone doesn't have that specter over their heads, thinking that it was something more inappropriate. So, but if a man or a woman here in Congress has to pay a penalty for sexually abusing or sexually harassing a coworker or an underling, everyone has the right to know that. And I think that needs to be made public as soon as possible, and we're asking for that to happen.
Well, and having seen you and your staff in office and have been to Washington a few times, there's an inherent responsibility when you have somebody's sons and daughters that are there to live that American dream, sir, as you have. I mean, you see that when these kids come to Washington with their big dreams and their tireless work hours.
Absolutely. I mean, you have these people that come to Washington, D.C. They don't get paid very well. This is something that they do because they know they're going to have good opportunities after this, but they start with low salaries. In the private sector they could do better, but they're really good people. You have a responsibility. I have some of my staffers actually are children of friends of mine that have earned their way into this office, and I just feel this responsibility to make sure that they have a good experience. We have a lot of interns. I love the intern program here in Washington, D.C., and the opportunities that people have. My oldest son actually had an opportunity to come to Washington and work for Jason Chaffetz from Utah in an internship, and it was one of the best experiences that he had in his college years. It's a fun opportunity, and you want to make sure that they have just wonderful relationships, that they have positive experiences, that they can use this as a way to build themselves and to grow and to become better and to become public servants. So that's one of the greatest things that I enjoyed about my son doing his internship with Jason, is that he left this place understanding public service more and the responsibility that people have, the responsibility that government has towards other people, and the interaction between policy and politics, something that even living under my roof, he never understood because he just saw it as the son of a congressman, not as a person who had actually worked in a congressional office. So those are all wonderful experiences, and I think we have such a moral obligation to make sure that these young men and women have positive opportunities and positive experiences. And you also want to create good citizens. Right, that's the whole reason I got into government, is so we can be good citizens, we can create good citizens, we can understand the relationship of the government to the individual, and it's a wonderful opportunity. If somebody has a negative experience, you just feel for them.
Congressman Raul Labrador joining us. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Congressman, what's the status of the tax bill, and how do you personally see it?
Well, I think something is going to pass. What exactly is going to pass, I can't tell you right now. But as you know, we passed a bill in the House, and there's a bill in the Senate that's being debated this week, and I believe they're going to pass their bill in the Senate this week. And then we're going to go to what we call a conference committee. Conference committee is when both the House and the Senate get together, and they iron out the differences between the two bills. And what I think we're going to get is a bill that reduces taxes for most individuals, that grows the economy, that has good positive aspects. I wish we could have gone further. I actually would have gotten rid of more of the loopholes. If I were the one writing the bill, I would have had a totally different bill. But I wasn't the one writing the bill. I don't serve on that committee. So the bill that we voted for, I think, is a good bill. And I think that we're going to see a reduction in taxes and a change in economic growth. Now what we need to do is pay more attention to the spending. There's a lot of people who keep saying, don't vote for this bill because it increases the deficit. And they have a fundamental misunderstanding of what tax policy is. Tax policy will always bring less revenues. If you're cutting taxes, then you're going to bring less revenues to the government. So our responsibility now is to look at our spending bills and make sure that we reduce spending in those areas. You don't reduce spending in a tax decrease bill, you reduce spending in a spending bill. So, these groups that are out there saying that we shouldn't vote for the tax bill because it increases the deficit, they have a fundamental misunderstanding of what a tax bill is, or at least a tax bill that cuts taxes. You can have a tax bill that increases taxes, and that will not decrease the deficit, but that's going to decrease the deficit in everybody's pocket back home. Increase the deficit. So what we need to do now is be serious about spending cuts, and that's where I feel that we have failed as a party, as a Congress. For 8 years, the Democrats had no problem with the deficits that were created under the Obama administration, and I hope that we as Republicans don't follow suit and say that it's okay when Republicans create deficits, because that's irresponsible. We need to look at our spending bills very, very seriously and look at our entitlement spending, all the different programs that we have. Government is too big, and we can shrink it. And I think it's important that we tackle those issues as well.
Congressman Raul Labrador joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio. Congressman, we take a look at your close relationship with the president. He's under siege for tweeting in North Korea. Is he doing a good job?
I think he's doing a terrific job. I've always said, and I've said this on your show, that I wish he would tweet a little bit less. and I'm not saying he shouldn't stop tweeting. I think it's, people misunderstand. I think it's great that he's tweeting. Some people compare it. If you think about it, the great presidents have always been able to find a way to get around the media. FDR got around the media by doing the fireside chats, right? And Ronald Reagan got around the media by doing TV directly to the people, by having press conference. He did it in a way that nobody had done it before. President Trump is doing something that modern technology allows him to do, which is getting around the media by using tweets. I just wish he would be a little bit more judicious sometimes with the types of things that he's tweeting about. But overall, he's doing a fantastic job. The work that he's doing with the executive, the things that he's shrinking government. I mean, he's the first president in a long time that's shrinking government. He's actually not hiring certain people because he thinks it's not necessary to have such a big government. The things that are coming out of the White House are good. The judges that are being nominated and confirmed in the Senate are fantastic. And these are judges that are going to make decisions for not for the next 4 years, but for the next 40 years, for the next generation. And these are such important, valuable things. So I think he's doing a terrific job. I'm very excited about having the president in the White House. And I just hope that he continues to fight the fight. It amazes me that the Democrats still, it's almost a year, actually it's more than a year after the election and almost a year since his inauguration, and they still haven't gotten over the fact that they lost. And this is what most of this is about. They are mad that they lost. They think it's unfair that they lost. They think that they can't believe that they lost because most of their friends didn't vote for the president. It reminds me of that famous New York Times reporter who said, "I can't believe Nixon won. Nobody I know voted for him." Right? and that's exactly what's happening. All these Democrats who just only talk to people who agree with them, they just can't believe that people voted for Trump. And the reality is that a lot of people in the United States voted for the man. The majority of the states voted for him. Obviously, he got the majority of the electoral vote, and he won the presidency fair and square. He played under the rules, and he won the presidency fair and square. And it's time for the Democrats to get over it, to move on. And if anybody's undermining democracy, they keep talking about how this president's undermining democracy. It's a party that for a year has not accepted an election. That's the group that is undermining democracy. It's the group that will not accept, what happened at the election time. If you think about what the Russians wanted to do when they did what they did. And it's funny to me because the Russians have been doing this for years. So it's not like this is the first time the Russians have tried to interfere in our elections. They have been doing it for years, but because their side lost, they decided to make, Democrats decided to make a big deal about it. What the Russians wanted to do is undermine the credibility of the United States government. Well, the Democrats are doing a great job assisting them with that by not accepting the results of this election. They should think about that long and hard. Just get over. I listened to Meghan McCain yesterday. I'm not a huge fan of hers, but she said something pretty telling. She was on The View, and she was looking at the Democrats there on the panel, and she told them, you know what? When my father lost the election, he accepted it, and he recognized that Barack Obama had something that appealed to people that he didn't have, and he said, let's get over it, and let's move on. And this is something that I hope the Democrats can learn.
Congressman Labrador, we've only got 2 minutes left in this segment with you. The governor's race, and I know you're going to try to make it to Idaho Chooses Life. You're always there, always a big proponent of life, a champion of life. How goes the race for governor?
It's going really well. We're excited about what's happening. Our team is building. People are excited. We did a poll last week, a couple of weeks ago, and we're making our decisions based on this poll. We're ahead by 14 points in the poll. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to rest on my laurels. That just tells me where the election is today. right? It doesn't tell me where the election is going to be 6 months from now. So I'm going to work very hard to make sure that we win this election. But we feel very confident, and not just the poll, but when I'm on the streets, when I'm on the airplane, people are so kind. They're so excited about our race. They're excited about our campaign. And I think we're just excited to represent people back in Idaho. I love public service, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity to make Idaho a stronger state. I think Idaho is such a good place. Every one of us loves living in the state. But we all know that Idaho can be so much more, that with the right leadership in the governor's office, Idaho can reach heights that it has never reached before. And I'm excited about it, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity.
Well, Congressman, we'll see you on the trail. We always appreciate you, and thank you very much, sir.
Hey, thank you so much.
All right, that's our great friend Congressman Labrador joining us. Your thoughts next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And I'm Kevin Miller. Holly, if you can hang on, we'll get to you, and then Gary Michael join us talking about, well, whether or not the city of Boise needs to, to pay for a new stadium. We'll talk a little bit about that, get your thoughts on it, and plus take your phone calls about the issues that matter to you. Remember, KIDO Talk Radio is your proud home of Fox News on the radio, right here in the Treasure Valley. I want to thank Congressman Labrador for joining us as well. Keep it here. Stay informed. KIDO Talk Radio.